Whatever's that supposed to be, Ruby?
It's a comfort to Mrs. Bridges, for Edward.
More like suffocate him than comfort him, if you ask me. Listen, girl, you've got to count the number of stitches. Terrible losses again today, Mr. Hudson.
Aye, 102 officers dead and missing. Worse than Neuf-Chapelle. Lord Wendover, Captain McIntosh, our Scottish amateur weightlifting champion. Several officers of the lifeguards.
Pray for Captain James every night.
So do I, Mrs. Bridges.
Daisy, front door.
Ruby?
Well, if you ask me, we're getting beaten this time, and no mistake.
Mrs. Bridges, that is tantamount to defeatism. We're holding our own. Our firm grip on Hill 60. Many successful counterattacks.
Well, all I know is that every day this week you've moved that row of pins back. It doesn't look like victory to me.
A planned withdrawal to prepared positions isn't a defeat, Mrs. Bridges. It is a sound strategic move. Especially when you've got a salient like we have at Ypres.
It's that gas. It's not fair.
Oh, it's terrible. Terrible. God will descend on them for it.
It must smell awful. It's a wonder to me it don't go off with a bang.
Oh, Ruby, it is not a common coal gas that the Germans are employing, but a chemical asphyxiant.
Well, whatever it is, God ought to punish them for it.
I think he will, Mrs. Bridges. I think he will. The Germans have forgotten one thing, one very important thing. The prevailing wind is west to east. And once we've got our gas, whoosh! The Hun will be hoist with his own petard, if I may use a military quotation by your greatest poet, Mrs. Bridges.
Johnson.
What is it, girl?
There's a telegraph boy at the door.
Well...
Oh, my Lord.
Telegram for Bellamy.
Yes, boy. Yes, thank you.
Any reply?
No. Madam, a telegram has arrived from...
The War Office.
From France, madam.
Well, thank you, Hudson. That'll be all.
Madam.
Hudson! Captain Bellamy. Captain Bellamy's coming home on leave today.
Oh, well, madam, that is good news. What time is he expected?
Army Post Office, Boulogne. Oh, it doesn't say.
We may presume the captain will be here in time for dinner, madam.
Oh, yes. Well, I hope so.
Ruby, go into the larder and fetch me out some sardines.
Or sardines, Mrs. Bridges, or whatever for.
Sardines on toast. Captain James's favourite savoury, ever since he was a little mite.
But sardines, Mrs. Bridges, with Sir Geoffrey Dillon coming to dinner, and a very important general, so Mr. Bellamy informed me.
Important general. I don't care if it's Lord Kitchener himself. You'll have to lump it.
Mrs. Bridges! You'll never guess who it is.
Edward!
G49202, Private Barnsley, on leave for the weekend. Hi, Daisy. Mrs. Bridges.
Welcome, Edward,
Hudson.
welcome.
Hello, Ruby.
Captain James is coming home too.
Really? So you got a house full of heroes at the weekend, and that's the war for you?
Well, I will say, Edward, you do look well.
You do look ever so well.
Ah, it's the delightful army cuisine, Mrs. Bridges. Here, do you know we marched from Colchester in Essex to our new camp at Cotford on Salisbury Plain in Wiltshire the other week?
All that way?
Yeah.
Whoa, come and sit down. Take the weight off your feet.
Thanks, Mrs.
Well, now, we've got a dinner party, but if you'd like to stay for supper, Edward, I'm sure you're welcome.
That's very kind of you, Mr. Hudson.
Supper? He'll stay as long as he likes. His room's always ready for him.
Edward has a mother and father living in Walthamstow, Mrs. Bridges. I'm sure his parents will be very
But my
anxious
dad's
to
down
have...
at Folkestone building army camps, Miss Hudson, and my mum's at my Auntie Ivy's in Watford in case there's bombing.
Bombing? Who ever heard of London being bombed?
You just put your case in your room. There's always a welcome for you here.
You must remember, Mrs. Bridges, that Edward is no longer employed as a servant in this house.
No, he's not. He's serving his king and country. That's what he's doing. And God bless him for it.
Up to the dining room, Daisy. Begin to lay for dinner.
I'll give you a hand, Mr. Hudson.
No, no need for that, Edward.
We are short-handed, Mr. Hudson. He was only saying so this morning.
Indeed we are, Daisy. Rose left yesterday for Scotland with Miss Georgina.
So I can give you a hand in the dining room tonight?
That's what, of course you can, Edward.
Oh, thanks. Well, I'll put my livery on then.
Livery? You'll wear the king's uniform, my boy. And if them upstairs isn't proud of you, I'll eat my boots.
Thanks, Mrs. Bridges.
And we're ever so glad to see you back, Edward. Aren't we, Miss Hudson?
Yes, yes we are, Edward.
And where's your case, love?
Oh, it's outside.
Very nice to have you back, sir.
Thank you, Hudson. Anyone home?
Mrs. Bellamy is in the morning room, sir.
Oh, thank you, Hudson. I can hardly believe it.
Oh, you look tired.
Yes.
Would you like a drink?
Please. You got my telegram?
Yes. Don't send any more telegrams, James.
Why ever not?
People here have come to dread them lately.
Oh, God, I'm sorry. I didn't think.
How could you know?
Extraordinary. It's like coming home from school. All those people bustling about in the streets. Everything so clean and shiny. Buses, motor cars, theatres. And umbrellas. I'd forgotten what peculiar things umbrellas were.
Was it? Well, is it? Very horrible.
Horrible, yes, I suppose that's the right word. But it's enormously exciting as well. I mean, each time you go into action, it's a new adventure. It's hard to explain, but you're all keyed up with your own men and your friends all round you. Danger, it doesn't seem real. Like another world. How's father?
All right. Well, he's pretty well. He's on thousands of committees, but he's champing at the bit because he says he hasn't got a proper war job. There's a lot of plotting going on to topple the government and force a coalition. Georgina's in Scotland, staying with the Mackenzies for a dance. Rose has gone to Maida.
Dance in Scotland. Extraordinary. Father!
James! How splendid! What a lovely surprise.
I did try to get you at the house.
Oh, I've been all over the place today. Well, you all in one piece?
Yes, you?
Yes, yes, I'm very fit up.
Good.
Well, we must make some plans. You couldn't have come back at a better time. Geoffrey Dillon and General Frankie Nesfield are coming to dine. Geoffrey's got himself well into the thick of it as Northcliffe's lawyer. And you know about Nesfield.
He has a certain reputation in the army.
Now, don't underestimate him. He's the power behind the throne of the War Office. And he's on our side.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
I mean political. He'll be damn useful when we get back in, which won't be long now, by the look of things. There's a terrible stink over the naval losses at Gallipoli. Fisher and Winston are hardly talking to each other.
Yes, well, talking of stink, I haven't had a bath for a very long time.
My dear boy,
2 weeks to be precise in a brewery, and I'm all tears. I'll go get out of these clothes. Oh, hello, Edward.
Sir?
I'd forgotten you were in the army.
Yes, sir, Middlesex Regiment.
Jolly good. The diehards.
Yes, sir.
Do you know why they're called that?
Not exactly, sir.
Put your tree down, boy, while Captain James is talking to you.
It was one of those battles in the Peninsular War. Albuera, I think it was. And your colonel was leading the attack when he was mortally wounded. And as he lay on the ground dying, he raised himself up and he waved his hat and he shouted, "Die hard, 57th. Die hard." So you've got quite a reputation to live up to.
Yes, sir.
I'm just going up to change, Hudson.
Oh, yes, sir, your bath is ready.
Thank you.
I am ashamed of you, Edward.
Why, Mr. Hudson?
Not even knowing how your regiment came by its name.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Hudson. Will you tell Mrs. Bridges the sardines were delicious, much appreciated.
Oh, yes, sir.
Nice to see your footman in uniform, Richard. Very patriotic.
But not too patriotic, I am happy to note.
What do you mean, Geoffrey?
You don't follow the royal example in banishing all alcoholic refreshments from your table.
Well, I'm glad I'm not the king sometimes, always having to set a good example. Need more than a war to make me sign the pledge.
Jane.
Well, some port, Geoffrey.
Cigars.
What division are you in, Captain Dudley?
Oh, 3rd Cavalry, General.
Hoping?
Yes.
Then you must have been in this last show at Ypres. Very unpleasant, the gas.
Yes.
Typical treacherous Hun trick.
Throwing the Hague Convention out of the window.
Thank you.
Well, inside the four walls of this room, it caused a pretty good panic back here.
Caused a pretty good panic out there, General. We were resting at Vlamertinghe. I was on the salient that day on a reconnaissance. Suddenly we saw thousands of these French African troops scooting across the field, shrieking their heads off. Horses, mules, every damn thing. Whole corps of them. I think the Boche was much taken by surprise as we were. The Canadians were splendid, though. Completely saved the day.
The French always panic when anything goes wrong. Hysterical people.
Well, our gas is ready and better than theirs.
No, I don't think it'll have much effect on the war in the end.
Don't you?
Everybody in Britain's busy making gas masks, including Hazel.
Absolutely useless, I believe.
As usual, the soldiers have found their own solution. Don't lie down in the trenches. The stuff is heavier than air. It sinks. And I hope this won't put you off your port. The thing to do is to pee on a handkerchief and then tie it round your face.
Not much about that in the newspapers, General.
And don't blame the newspapers. Blame the censor. It's official policy to feed the public pap. If you want to know how the war's going, don't look at the headlines, look at the casualty lists.
What do the troops think of the newspapers?
Oh, they just laugh. Ah, brave boys up at the front, all that stuff. I just happened to see tonight's newspaper report on our little show between Ypres and Hill 60 last week. German attack smashed. Successful counterattack drives back weakened enemy. Well, as you know, General, we were the ones who were smashed if anybody was. And they drove us back a good mile.
But surely there's nothing wrong with the men?
Ah, nothing at all. They're better than the Germans. Tougher, braver, better soldiers. But what remains of the professional British Army is being squandered by a lot of amateurs who don't know their job.
Meaning who?
Oh, I don't mean the generals, sir. I mean the politicians, the people who are supposed to be running this war. They just don't seem to realize that it's a new kind of war. More like siege warfare than anything else. A war of barbed wire and machine guns, artillery, guns more than anything else.
We had the guns at Neuve-Chapelle.
We ran out of shells on the second day. Grenadiers lost 20 officers and 300 men and gained 200 yards.
It's a damn scandal. At least we printed Reppington's letter in the Times.
And what did Asquith say? There is no truth in the statement that our armies are being crippled by the government's failure to produce the necessary ammunition.
Damn lie.
He was probably drunk, as usual.
If I might give you an example, General. Last Thursday when the Germans attacked, they'd plastered us with shells. Heavies, mediums, everything they had. From 4 Achem until 7 when their infantry attacked. There was very little left of our trenches or our wire. And not one single British gun of any sort supported us. I think it was about 2:30 when the Blues made their counterattack that one solitary howitzer started to fire. One 6-inch Howe, obsolescent since the South African War. I saw it later when we were relieved. I also saw the battery commander sitting on a limber in tears. That's a fine way to win a war.
James, we all know about the shortcomings of the War Cabinet. That is why we Tory politicians are determined to replace Asquith with a government of all parties.
Well, I tell you this, gentlemen, if any politician, be he Liberal, Tory, or whatever, went up anywhere near the front at the moment, he'd be torn limb from limb.
I can imagine how the men must feel, but it isn't just a question of negligence. The problems are colossal. We've got to get industry into full production.
Yes. Well, if you'll excuse me, I only got back.
Well, of course, my dear boy, of course.
General, Sir Geoffrey.
Good night, James.
Good night, James.
Good night. That boy of yours, Richard's a real fizzer.
I'm glad you think so, General.
Absolutely first class, just the sort we want. I must remember to keep an eye on him.
Well, the government may not have provided any ammunition to blow up the Germans, but James has certainly provided us with plenty to blow up the government. Northcliffe will be delighted. Impressions of the Second Battle of Ypres. Eyewitness account by a gallant officer just back from the front. Splendid stuff.
I trust you're not going to quote him.
Oh, no. Anonymous, of course. No names, no pack drill. Isn't that the correct military expression, General?
Well, we're at war with Germany, Sir Geoffrey, not the Liberal Party.
Geoffrey, what is important is not Northcliffe's campaign to put Mr. Asquith's head on a platter. I hope our motives are more patriotic than that. What we need is a more vigorous, courageous, and efficient prosecution of the war. Now, that means a Tory government or a coalition. And we must work to that end.
Well, I strongly advise Northcliffe to keep off Kitchener. He's the golden calf of the British public and can do no wrong.
No point in it, I agree. Simply pull down the circulation.
Oh, Geoffrey.
Oh, tell him to drag one of Halden's pro-German skeletons from the cupboard, if need be. The readers will lap that up.
Well, there may be a little likelihood of victory in Flanders, at least for the moment. But I can't help smelling victory in the offing at Westminster.
What's the matter?
Nothing.
How long is your leave?
2 weeks, 10 days. If there's a gale or two in the channel, I might be able to stretch it to 2 weeks.
Would you like to get out of London?
Yes, I think I would. Come on, let's go up to bed.
We can't. Well, not until the General's...
Why not? Just because my father chooses to ask a lot of his boring political cronies to dinner doesn't mean I can't take my wife to bed whenever I like.
On guard. That's it, come on, point up. You're not winkle picking. Right, Private Finch. Spot a bayonet practice, right. On a command of 2, you would lunge at that stomach. Ready, 1, 2, a lunge and a scream. Lunge, that's it. Twist it in the guts. Foot on the stomach. Go on, foot on the stomach, that's it. And withdraw neatly. They are, dead as mutton. Do you know, our sergeant killed 3 at Lecato in as many minutes like that. Right, Private Finch, what have I told you? What's the golden rule?
4 inches of cold steel's enough to kill any German ever born.
Right.
You have another go, Edward?
You may not, Ruby. All the cold steel you'll ever need is waiting in the scullery for you to wash up. Look sharp now. And take that contraption off your head. Oh, she's so glacial, that girl. It is inconvenient enough, Edward, allowing Daisy an afternoon off without you unsettling the kitchen maid as well.
Yes, Mr. Hudson.
Yes, well, mind you're both back by 6 o'clock. No later, mind. Well, let's see then. Polygon wood, zillibiki. Zillibiki.
Extraordinary, this hate of the Germans. Does everyone hate them? I mean, ordinary people, not just the hysterical journalists.
Yes.
But why hate them?
Well, I thought you'd understand. Belgium? What about the atrocities?
Oh, yes. But you don't have to hate an enemy in order to kill him. I rather respect the Hun soldier.
Even when he uses gas?
Oh, that's not his fault. That's the fault of his leaders. And I was talking to 2 German prisoners the other day, and they were genuinely horrified that they had been the first to use gas. I'm sorry. I don't know what's the matter with me. I had planned to be different. Somehow I don't feel I'm living in the real world here. I feel outside. Left behind in a silly sort of way. It's as though everyone was speaking a language that I knew, but didn't understand. Nothing has any flavor.
You're still in France?
Yes. Sorry.
Time for golf.
Come on. Mr. Hudson.
So I believe, Ruby. What a way to spend a beautiful spring afternoon.
I've never been to cinema.
Nor have I, Ruby, nor do I ever intend to. From what I hear, a picture palace is a very unhealthy place and a bad, bad influence on young people.
Well, I should like to go. Just once.
Isn't she lovely?
Yeah.
Do you want to stay and see the end of this?
Yeah. I want to know what happens.
You marry her, of course.
How do you know?
I
like they always do in films. That's silly.
It's not.
There you are. I told you. Should we go out and buy one? A ring. What do you think, Dad?
Mr. Smith drowned one of his wives in the bath at Blackpool, and another one at Herne Bay. Fancy that, Mrs. Bridges.
Yes, fancy that, Ruby.
And then he went out and got himself something to eat after he'd done them in. Oh, some people do have strange habits.
Oh, for heaven's sake, take that trash away from her, Mrs. Bridges.
Let that be a lesson to you, not to talk to strange men.
I never do, Mrs.
The
Bridges.
streets all dim at night and full of soldiers. No woman's safe.
We have an announcement to make. Private Edward Barnes, bachelor, and Miss Daisy. Well, we'll have to have wedding bells peal. Announce their intention to get married.
Well, bless my soul.
Thanks, Mrs. Bridges.
Congratulations, Edward.
Thanks, Rhoda.
I am surprised, Edward, that you should make such an announcement even in jest before you have permission.
Oh, Mr. Hudson.
But why, Mr. Hudson? My mum and dad knew of my intention.
The master and the mistress, Edward.
Well, King's my master, and I haven't got a mistress yet.
Even though you seem to have forgotten that you were employed in this house for many years, and therefore I would have supposed owe some small sense of loyalty to the Bellamy family, presumably you remember that Daisy is still employed here as an under-housemaid.
But I don't have to ask anyone, Mr. Hudson, except my commanding officer, so we can get dependence allowance.
Well, you wouldn't like Daisy to be turned off without a character now, would you, Edward?
Well, who cares, Mrs. Bridges? Look, there are posters in every street saying women are urgently required for war work, and a lot better paid than they are here, too.
Edward, you have changed in the army, and considerably for the worse, so it seems. Yes, now that I come to I remember when you first came here, there was always that nasty wee streak of insolence there.
Oh, Mr. Hudson, things are changing. Can't you see that? The war's changing everything.
I do not see that. And I grieve to think of all the years I spent trying to instill into you some sort of sense of propriety. All these years have been completely thrown by the wayside.
No, Mr. Hudson. Edward didn't mean it like that, did you, Edward?
No, of course I didn't. Well, naturally, Daisy and I were going to go up and tell the family, but that's just the way Mr. Hudson pitched into me like that. Well, I've had enough of that in the army without Mr. Hudson starting.
Daisy, up to the morning room, light the fire.
I'll go.
No, you're a soldier, home and leave. You just sit down. Make yourself comfortable. Smoke, if you will. Enjoy yourself.
Daisy, better go up and change.
Do you think Mr. Hudson's mean?
Nobody asked for your opinion, Ruby, thank you very much. Not until you prepared all them vegetables in the scullery. Well, have you?
No, Mrs. Bridges.
Well, go along and do it then.
Thanks, Mrs. Bridges.
You mustn't mind Mr. Hudson, Edward. He doesn't mean it. He gets upset very easy these days. You see, he takes the war very serious.
Oh, rubbish, James.
I trust you had a nice game, sir.
Oh, yes, thank you, Hudson. I know it's a Scottish invention, but I find it a vicious sport, as well as being extremely bad for the temper.
Fetch Edward.
Now?
Yes, and quickly.
Mrs. Bellamy actually beat me, Hudson.
Ah, well, congratulations, madam.
Thank you, Hudson.
Sir, madam, I wonder if I might have a word with you on a purely domestic matter.
Yes, of course, Hudson.
Edward and Daisy have taken it into their heads to want to get married.
Oh, have they? Not a very good time.
No, sir, I have indicated that to them. But Edward always was a very headstrong boy, sir, and these days things seem to be...
Quite, Hudson, quite.
And naturally they wish to see you, sir, and you, madam, to ask your permission.
Well, that, at least, is pleasantly old-fashioned.
I thought perhaps a few words of caution from you, sir, and from you, madam, might weigh more heavily than any admonition offered by myself.
Yes, of course, Hudson.
Any convenient time?
I took the liberty of sending for them, sir.
Very well, Hudson. Ask them to come in.
Very good, sir. Go. Cap. Edward and Daisy, sir. Madam.
Come in, Edward. Come in. Well, Hudson has told us your happy news.
Yes, sir.
Rather sudden.
Well, we've been going out for... well, since before the war, sir.
Well, not so sudden. Oh, please don't think Mrs. Bellamy and I have any objection. We both wish you every happiness. But you have considered the position, I suppose.
Oh, yes, sir.
It's not perhaps the best moment in history to get married.
No, I suppose not, sir.
These Germans, you know, they're damn good soldiers. Just at the moment, they're fewer than us because they're having to fight the Russians as well. But they're holding their own. Their guns, their organisation is better than ours. Well, of course, they've been planning this thing a long time.
Yes, sir.
It's not going to be an easy thing. It's going to go on a long time. What division are you in, Edward?
18th Division, sir. 54th Brigade.
New Army. Well, in the late summer or the autumn at the latest, you'll be coming out to join us in France. And we're very much looking forward to having you, have no doubt of that. There's plenty of fighting to do, so things won't be so bad for you. But they will be pretty hard on Daisy. I know, because unfortunately one of my more depressing jobs as an officer is to write to the dependents of the casualties in my squadron.
Well, I think so. Whether we was married or not, it'd be just the same.
Well, you both have our blessing. And I hope you'll be very happy together.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, Hudson.
Sir.
Poor wretches.
If only people needn't fall in love. For the duration of the war.
You are a goose sometimes.
Oh, excuse me, sir. This came by special messenger while you were out.
Oh. What kind of special messenger, Hudson?
A Boy Scout on a bicycle, actually, sir.
Oh, War Office. Thank you, Hudson.
Sir.
Hudson, did I say the right thing?
I thought your advice was admirable, sir. I only hope they will take it to heart.
You will attend War Staff Course number 4 at the Staff College, Camberley, prior to being posted to Headquarters 11 Corps BEF, new formation, as a General Staff Officer, Grade 3.
Oh, James. Oh, that's wonderful.
Nothing wonderful about it. Staff Officer. I'm not going to join the Yellow Brigade. Stuck at a desk with shiny boots, red tabs, miles behind the lines. Not on your life.
Well, James, glad to see you still all in one piece.
Thank you, Colonel.
Sit down. Are you well? Enjoying your leave?
Yes, thank you, Colonel.
Good, good.
But to be quite honest, I'm not very happy about this posting to the staff.
Oh, yes, I had a copy of the letter. Quite frankly, I'm rather surprised. I thought you'd be delighted. I imagined it was the result of some judicious string-pulling in high places.
It was nothing of the sort, Colonel.
It's quite usual these days, I'm sorry to say. I apologize if I misjudged you. Certainly it wasn't at my recommendation.
In that case, Colonel, I would be glad if you would ask them to cancel the posting and allow me to return to regimental duty.
Yes, I see. I've taken the trouble, using certain private methods known only to myself, to discover the source of that letter. The military secretary was asked to make that posting personally by a very senior and influential officer on the general staff. I'm sorry that I can't reveal his name to you, so I couldn't possibly alter it even if I wished. Which, as a matter of fact, I don't. You've seen this, I suppose?
No, Colonel.
Article in yesterday's Daily Mail. News from the front. Household cavalry officer, home on leave, reveals grave shortage of artillery at Ypres.
I don't read the Daily Mail.
Nor do I. But apparently the King does, and he is not very pleased, to put it mildly. This has been brought to my attention in no uncertain way.
Really, Colonel, I haven't been speaking to reporters. I would never think of it. I honestly believe this has nothing to do with me.
Well, I do. You are the only officer in the Household Cavalry on leave who took part in the battle. That is an eyewitness account. All the details, the counterattack by the Blues, the single howitzer gun, it tallies more or less exactly with other reports of the battle. Your father is a distinguished Conservative member of Parliament. And I'm sure that you are neither so misinformed nor so naive not to know that just at the moment the Conservatives are throwing every brickbat they can lay their hands on at the government to try and force a coalition.
Yes, Colonel, I did know that. Well, whoever wrote that article, the facts in it are true.
That is not the point! Officers in the Household Brigade do not indulge in politics in any form, as you know damn well. And I don't in the least enjoy losing my name to Buckingham Palace any more than I enjoy sitting at its desk while the regiment is fighting in France.
And if someone picked up something I said in private, Colonel, I'm exceedingly sorry.
I've had a report on the last show from your commanding officer. He singles you out for special praise. You're almost certain to be mentioned in dispatches. Might even have been in line for a medal. As it is, you're damn lucky I'm not going to ask you to transfer to another regiment. So, take your staff job and be thankful.
Yes, Colonel.
Good day.
No, Ruby, not like that. Can't you even squeeze a lemon without putting the pips and half the peel into the juice? I don't know. You're more used to the Germans than what you are to me, and that's a fact. Lemon meringue pie for dinner tonight, Miss Hudson. Give Captain James some happy memories to take back to the trenches.
What am I to do, Mrs. Bridges?
Clear away all that mess for a start and then get some more lemons.
There aren't any more lemons.
Well, go to the shop and get some. Then there will be some more, won't there? I don't know. It's getting worse, if that's humanly possible. Well, what is it?
I believe you made a reference just now to the trenches, Mrs. Bridges.
Quite correct, Mr. Hudson, I did.
I think you can forget the trenches for the moment. All Captain James's uniform jackets will have to go round to the tailors.
What does that mean? Is he joining the Horse Marines or something?
Red tabs, Mrs. Bridges.
Not a general?
The staff, the general staff, and the strong likelihood of a brevet majority, if you ask me.
Oh, best news I've had since Christmas. Well, I never did.
Oh. Don't lay for me, love.
Oh, I have not.
Oh, I'm going out.
Where? At the pub?
Yeah, see if any of my old mates are there. Nobody seems to want me around here anymore.
Oh, don't be so soft. You know I do.
Yeah, Mr. Hudson doesn't know. He just makes me feel as though I'm in the way all the time.
You're going to get drunk, aren't you?
I'm not. Well, it is my last night, you know.
Yeah. I know. Well, don't come back too late, eh?
All right. Bye.
Bye.
What's the matter with you, Daisy? You look as if you was in another world.
I think I was, Mrs. B.
Well, I hope it's a better one than this one, anyway. Grave news from Gallipoli. Many casualties. Never rains, but it pours.
Oh, James, you can't blame us for being glad that you'll be safe for a while. You know what you said yourself to Edward and Daisy. Well, it is bad just sitting here reading the newspapers, waiting for a letter, or even a telegram.
I don't blame you, Hazel. Anyway, it's nothing to do with you. I blame you, Father. You and that slimy Dillon for abusing my good name and using a private conversation held in my dining room in the rotten cause of building your own little empires.
That's not true.
Making me lose my name with my colonel. It's bloody unfair! And don't tell me you didn't know all about it.
I agree Dillon should never have quoted you, even anonymously. But you must realize this article will probably do more for the troops in France than...
And for the party.
James, you've done your stuff. You've been in the thick of it from the start. And there's certainly nothing dishonourable in accepting a staff appointment. Rather the opposite, I should have thought.
Honourable? Being labelled one of Nesfield's bum boys? One of his private little army of spies? Well, damn Nesfield! And damn Dillon! And damn you for interfering, Father! What is it, Hudson?
Madam, Sir Geoffrey Dillon has called and wonders if you're at home.
No.
Yes. Please show him in, Hudson.
Very good, madam. Sir Geoffrey Dillon.
Oh, Geoffrey.
Good evening. Good evening, Richard. Good evening, James, and my congratulations. The little bird has whispered in my ear that you've landed a plum job on the staff. Well done. Well done.
Thank you, Sir Geoffrey.
Geoffrey, do sit down.
Thank you.
Have a drink?
Well, perhaps a little Scottish wine, as this is rather a special occasion.
No. What's so special about it?
Thank you. I've just come from Printing House Square. We've got him on the run at last. I have here a draft of tomorrow's leader in the Times. Geoffrey Dawson let me have a copy.
How does it read?
Like a death sentence on Asquith. Government incapable of fighting a war, hampering our brave soldiers, thanks to the obstinacy of the War Office in ordering shrapnel shells instead of high explosive. The government will never survive that kind of attack.
If you'll excuse me, I'm going away in the morning. I have a lot to do.
James?
I'm sorry. I had to get out before I hit the fellow.
Yes, but did you mean... Are you really going away in the morning?
Yes. Yes, I suddenly realised. I have to get away from here, anywhere away from this muck, or I'll go mad.
Would you like me to go with you?
No, I'd rather go on my own if you don't mind.
No, of course not.
You do understand?
Yes. I do understand.
What with this shell business and the Gallipoli disaster?
Yes, we're lucky. The Gallipoli thing going wrong just at the right moment. Jackie Fisher's likely to resign, I'm told.
Really?
Your boy's story couldn't have come at a better moment. Northcliffe's already written to French, you know, urging him to find some way of making the shell shortage public. But, of course, as Commander-in-Chief, he has to be a little wary.
Surely our troops in France can make it public themselves.
They don't all have the same opportunity as the James did, you know.
Hey, what's the matter? Well, hey, what is it then?
You're not drunk, are you?
Of course I'm not.
I'm going to spend the night with you.
Yeah. Yeah, they'll skin you alive if they catch you.
Well, they won't. It's quite safe with Rose being away and... Well, we might not see each other again for ages.
Daisy, I've been thinking.
What?
Well, you know, perhaps Captain James was right, you know. Perhaps I oughtn't have asked you to marry me. I mean, well, it's not really fair. I mean, I haven't got any money put away, and I'm bound more or less to get wounded or something the way this war's going, and... Well, if you was to have a baby, they'd chuck you out of here sharp, no matter what they say now.
Well, that's my business, isn't it? I mean, I can look after myself and the baby too, if necessary. Oh, come on, Eddie, cheer up. You've asked me to marry you, and I've said yes, and I've got a ring to prove it. Or anything else, it would be a breach of promise. Yeah, move over, I'm freezing.
Oh, you are cold. Daisy?
Hmm?
Have you, well, you know, have you ever done it before?
Leave off? Of course I haven't. But I know all about it. Don't live 6 in a room in Hoxton for nothing. No doubt you're highly experienced, what with all them country house weekends and parties and foreign maids and that.
Oh, that was just talk. You know, that was just jokes. I've never done it either, Days.
Haven't you? I'm ever so glad. It'll be the first time for both of us.